This podcast is a proud member of the Unidentified Network.
On the Track is a web TV show about cryptozoology, natural history, green issues and whatever else the team feel like making up as they go along. Enjoy!
So what's in today's show, Mr. John?
Well, Hennis, in this week's enthralling episode we meet Ray Harwood, who's not only the man behind a whole plethora of Bigfoot magazines, but is the self-described Sasquatch Archaeologist. Enjoy.
I really like the old credits.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's John Downs, and this is Archibald. I'm the director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, and he is the Centre for Fortean Zoology Dog. And welcome to another episode. Archie, what's happening? I think something weird is going on over there, and we're being transported to some peculiar corner of the home counties.
And now, it's Gwen Dibley's Pearls of Wisdom.
Except the child still Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's John Downs. I'm the director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, and as you can see, Archibald is still mostly asleep, now looking around because he heard me move the monitor on my lap. And welcome to another episode of On the Track. Now, for those of you who don't know, every Saturday afternoon at 3 for about half an hour, although recent episodes have been going on a little longer, and every Wednesday evening at 6:30 for about half that, we bring you a mélange, a mystery, a miscellany, a mixture, and all sorts of other things, beginning with M, of hard science, weird shit, and surreality, which for some reason, known best to Richard Freeman, is presented in the form of the old ATV logo. The thing that everybody asks is, what is surreality? Well, as you look over my left shoulder here, there is a young lady called Lilith Tinkerbell, and she's going to tell us all about it.
The word itself means beyond realism in French, and surreality is distinguished by the sense that things seem real, but are so illogical and unsettling that they can't possibly be. Sometimes everyday life seems like a bizarre dream. It's surreality making you pinch yourself to see if you are actually asleep.
Thank you, Lilith. You're a very, very clever girl. Now, I want to introduce you to this week's guest. He is Ray Harwood, who is best known as the editor of several different Bigfoot magazines, which you can buy on Amazon. I'd known about him for years, and I'd even swapped a few messages with him, but I didn't get to know him properly until a few weeks ago. When I found he was so interesting, I invited him to come on to the show and tell us all about his researches into what he calls Sasquatch archaeology.
So tell me about your magazine.
Okay, let's see. I'll start at the beginning here. I thought I had them organized. Oh, here it is. Okay, here's the first one I did.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of the backstory is I going out looking for squatch is one of my hobbies. And during COVID, during the lockdown, um, I just started doing one of my hobbies is flint knapping, like replicative systems analysis on lithic tools, which are like flint arrowheads and things like that. So I used to do a newsletter on that like in the 1970s and 80s. So I was going to do that again during COVID, and no one at all was interested at all. That whole genre turned from experimental archaeology into like art hobby, which is fine because they can use lapidary equipment and use that to aid them in making beautiful flint and that sort of thing. So anyway, so I decided to try Bigfoot. So I Googled Bigfoot magazine and nothing came up. So I thought it would be fun to start one.
Mm-hmm.
So I did this first issue, and Steve Baxter over there in the UK, I saw this art on the internet. So I contacted him, and he said I could use it. So I put it out, but the magazine was so it was all unorganized and um, sort of pieced together, and I didn't really take a lot of time doing the final retouches and the final editing and the read through. So Steve contacted me, and he offered his help, and he redid it, and it's pretty lengthy. I don't know, it was like 100 and 200 and something pages. But yeah, Steve Baxter was very helpful. Go ahead.
That's a book, not a magazine. 200
Yeah, it's
pages.
pretty hefty. You can use it as a doorstop when you're done. So anyway, so Steve helped me with several issues, and they're actually still selling really well after 2 years. So that was really great. And so I got discontent with the whole thing because of the online trolls and whatnot. So I decided to give the magazine to Steve because he'd been so helpful, and then he could maybe make it into a profitable, organized system there. But for some reason, the Amazon picked up on the name and thought he was like copyright infringements, or I don't know exactly what, but they shut him down. So, but he did make two really good issues, and I saw that you interviewed one of those, and that was really good. So that's sort of how I started with the magazine. Um, as far as my interest in Sasquatch, do you want me to go over that?
Please tell me.
Okay. Well, let's see. I'll start at the end, because I've done one or two of these now, and I start at the beginning, but I never reach the good stuff. So I'll start at the end and work backwards. So I'll start when I'm dead, then I'm in the hospital, then I'm alive looking for Bigfoot. So start at the end and work backwards. So my interest, like I said, was in archaeology, and I had a professor who was I really liked this professor. He was like I don't know, like a professor, father figure, professor type guy, uh, and his name was Clay Singer, which sounds Native American, but he was actually I think Russian Jewish, and his family were like herdsmen that rode around on these like dwarf horses, running some kind of animals, like a herdsman. Anyway, but he went when he was young. He went to UCLA and he studied the lithic technology, which is what I was talking about, the flint type tools, like over there they dug up the flint, in the Dover White Cliffs are filled with flint nodules. They dug them up, and you guys still sell gun flints from those mines and the flint mines over there. And well, in any case, uh, Clay went over to France, and he studied with a fellow named Francois Bourdes, who was a real famous archaeologist at the time in the 60s. So he learned this study of lithics from this French guy who sort of pioneered that genre in science, in archaeological science. It's like so anyway, so I was training under him for a long time, and then he got me a job at what they call the Northridge Archaeological Research Center back then, which was sort of more like, it was kind of like a miniature museum hangout place. It had old wooden boards that creaked when you walked on them, and they had wine tasting on Friday nights. And it was just a great place for a young person to hang out in those days. And so I frequented that, and then I finally got a job there. And I got to go on some archaeological surveys, and what those were at the time is there was when there was construction going on, they had to get an environmental impact report, and part of that was cultural like artifacts and whatnot. So anyway, so we'd go out and we'd do a survey, and then we'd find out if there was any cultural artifacts in that area. And if there wasn't, they could go ahead with their construction. If not, we had to mitigate that by either capping it off. If it was like a burial or something, we'd cap that off, or have it, moved. And then you'd bring in a Native American monitor or a historian, depending on who was there. And so we'd do that, those surveys, and then excavations if necessary. And then and the analysis part, we did quite a bit, and I helped on that quite a bit. And then so anyway, to make the long story a little shorter, Clay Singer was going out to a place called the Calico Early Man Site in the Mojave Desert of California. So it's pretty desolate out there. It's the classic desert, and a lady named Dee Simpson in the 50s had discovered a lithic flint quarry site out there, where some early inhabitants had been sitting on this Lake Mannix and chipping flint into little hand axes and little flakes like this. As a cutting tool, it has a little bit of a blade edge on it. You can see where the two detached flakes are.
Yeah.
What that created the blade edge. Anyway, so in any case, so Clay and I went out there, and Dr. Leakey from South Africa, who used to dig at the Olduvai Gorge and found, the ancient hominids and their stone tools, had already been out there, and he gave it his endorsement of this is an actual site. And the reason that was important is in North America, the humanization of North America was supposed to happen about 12 to 10,000 years ago. And it was a human migration called the Clovis migration over the Bering Straits, when there was a land bridge there because the ocean levels were down. So in any case, the whole 1970s was this debate whether there was pre-Clovis man in the New World or not. And it was people were on the lookout for archaeological sites that predated this Clovis migration. And here's here's a typology of the projectile points made out of flint. I don't know if you can see them, sort of, that categorize the Clovis migration. So it's a lozenger-shaped flint arrow point with a flute extending from the base up towards the tip. So that's how you identify the Clovis culture when you find this in an archaeological site. And most of them are fragmented or, like this from use. And they were used on a spear thrower, like you see in Australia, the Aboriginal atlatl and spear type technology. And they were hunting megafauna, like Pleistocene megafauna, like bison antiquitous and those sort of things. They followed them across the land bridge into North America. So in any case, on the lookout in the 70s for pre-Clovis archaeological sites. All of them that were supposedly found were highly debated and controversial. Well, this Calico site that Clay had been researching, doing the stone tool analysis for Dr. Leakey and this Ruth D. Simpson lady, he was doing the lithic analysis. So he was going out there. So he invited me on a trip to go out there, and I went out there. And sure enough, I went out there, and they have deep archaeological excavation pits, just like you would see like in Africa or something, not New World type looking things. So anyway, we went in there, and I got to analyze a lot of the stone tools with Clay Singer, and they were sure enough hand axes like you'd see in Africa and whatnot from ancient man, and the flake tools, the core tools, and then everything in between in the reduction technology. With stone, you don't add to it like clay, you subtract. So you reduce the mass into the tool you're using. And then there's debutage or that fall off of it. And that's pretty identifiable as well. Well, in any case, we went down there and we both agreed that they were man-made stone tools, and the opposing side said no, they were natural geoglyphs or naturally formed. I don't remember the terminology because it was so long ago, but it was naturally formed, like it was in a conglomerate and the rock was stuck in there and another rock eroded out and hit it and made a flake and made it look like a tool. But it was just too systematic and it was just the flake detachments were too systematic for that to have happened, and especially on more than one case. There was dozens of these tools. So anyway, my theory at the time was that not only was it pre-Clovis human, but it was pre-human human. In other words, I think these were an ancestor, maybe not of us, but some sort of relict hominid. And then one day I was watching the one of the television programs, In Search of, or one of those, and they were talking, and they showed the Patterson-Gimlin film, and that's when I thought, oh my gosh, that's probably some type of animal like this, or relict hominid, was probably the one at that Calico early man site in the Mojave Desert 200,000 years ago, chipping that flint into these hand axes. So that's when I started getting interested in the Bigfoot research to see if there was some kind of way we could correlate that. And then years later, I was on vacation in Yosemite National Park there in California, and we pulled over and we're taking a hike down by this stream, and sure enough, I see footprints. And so I got that. Where is that? Well, anyway, I saw a trackway of several footprints leading into the bushes. And so I followed the footprints. I took some photographs and some video. And unfortunately, the video was on a computer that crashed, so it went away. But I did find some internet pictures that I'd mailed to other people, luckily. But in any case, I say these footprints, and they're the classic with a mid-tarsal break ridge with pressure ridge in the middle, the even toes, the rounded heel. I mean, the classic Sasquatch footprints. They weren't as huge as the ones they talk about in a lot of instances, but I would say they were 14 inches long. So not beyond the realm of humans by any means, but not shaped the same. Uh, but they were also in line, and they're fairly far apart, but not abnormal. But it's not a place where you would see a lot of barefoot people running. It was like right near a river where there was a lot of brush, and it was far from the road. But anyway, I followed these prints, and I found a monolithic type boulder, a big boulder, and in it were these round potholes where the Native Americans had been grinding their acorns and seeds and other items where they take a mortar and a pestle and they grind down into that. And hundreds of years ago, and the potholes are still left, and they fill up with water and pine needles and whatnot. Well, one of them had been cleaned out, and someone had found one of the ancient pestles and put it in to the hole. So I thought that was interesting. I thought, maybe someone was just showing someone else how the ancient granaries worked or something, with the acorns and the seeds and whatnot. So in any case, then I saw two footprints in this little meadowy type area next to the boulder, from the boulder, and there was two footprints like this with a turd right in the middle. So you could see where that Sasquatch or whatever it was had stood there and defecated, and it was all still there, perfect. So my thought is maybe I know they're supposed to have these tremendous jaws and the sagittal crest that the muscles attached to, so they got this huge power in their jaws, so they don't really need tools. I've heard that argument quite often. But I mean, what about opportunity? Like you have some kind of food that's a little bit rough, and hey, there's two pieces of rock right here that can simplify it. So why not just be an opportunist and do this at the time? Maybe not carry off the tools, maybe may not modify them a great deal. But that was my theory at the time, that they'd actually used it. So that was one interesting thing that I experienced. And then I've had a couple different things that I thought were kind of strange because I'm in the woods almost, daily. But another interesting thing was I was hunting up here in northern Idaho, and I found and this is in one of the magazines, but I'm not quite sure which one it is, because there's pictures in there. But anyway, I'll just try to give you a visual image. I came up on a skeleton of an elk, and it looked like an ancient butcher site, like you'd see in an archaeological magazine where they do an excavation and they find the bones, and they sort of keep moving the dirt aside and expose the skeleton. It almost had that look to it because there was all kinds of undergrowth growing through the rib cage, and there was like moss and pine needles. Anyway, so I went to look at it, and I got looking at it, and I found let's see if I have it. I might not. Oh yeah, I do. So I found inside the rib cage, I found this stone.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Yeah, so the thing about this stone is that it might just say, oh, it's just a rock that was inside a skeleton. But this is the problem, and why I think it has to do with this butcher. I think it's an elk butcher site, and I think it's from a relic hominid that still dwells. But I mean, people say it's a wilderness survivalist out there doing something, and that may be true. But if you look at this, you can see a flake detachment, and then a huge flake detachment here. And this is a sort of andesite that's extremely hard. I've been flint knapping like my whole life, and I would have a difficult time flint knapping something this hard. But if you were a great big Sasquatch, it would be a piece of cake. But anyway, this is reminiscent of Neanderthal, what they call the Levallois technique, which they build like a core by taking off flakes. And then as a final thing, they take one giant flute right across the top, taking the top flaked part off and using that as a blade edge. And it leaves this core tool, which could be used for all sorts of functions. And you can see the detachment right there of this. And that's a Neanderthal trait. And that technology is not simple. And it was used for hundreds of thousands of years, the Levallois. And then at the other side is just the non-functional end, but you can see different flake detachments. So it's very rare in nature to get multiple flake detachments, especially when you got a striking platform here, a prepared striking platform. You can see where they prepared, and then if you really look carefully, you probably can't see it, but you can see a more micro, not microscopic, but a more this would be like a macro chip, and these would be like microchips. This is from not from function, but this is from manufacture, reduction manufacture, and this is from, oops, this is from use. These microchips are from usage, use wear, and then this mega flake that'd be from reduction from manufacture.
Well, I don't know about you, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, but I found that utterly, utterly fascinating. We're going to be back with him again next week. What did you think, Mr. McCrinnan?
I thought it was wonderful, Mr. Downs. I think he's a very intelligent gentleman, and I would love to hear more from him.
Well, you're going to, because we have another half-hour show next week.
Excellent. I've never actually heard somebody else who does flint knapping talking about it, and it was so interesting. Yeah.
But now this happens.
If you want to support us and help us make more content like these, please press like, subscribe, follow our Facebook page and check out our Patreon.
And there's the ghost of Joe Strummer, who's an ever more regular visitor to my little house, will tell you. Don't forget to ring the notification bell, otherwise you won't be told when the next episode's gonna be. And that would be an awful pity, wouldn't it?
If you've been affected by any of the topics in today's episode, you can just bugger off, because we don't give a monkeys. Bloody well get a grip. Sort your own bloody problems out rather than ringing up somewhere.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, here we are at the end of another show. I hope you enjoyed it. I want to say a big thank you to everybody who helped me put this show together. First of all, obviously, Ray Harwood for his fascinating interview. But I'd also like to say thank you to V. McCrinnan.
Thank you.
Say goodbye to the boys and girls, V.
Goodbye to the boys and girls, V.
Dear, 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 dear. Where do I get these people? In fact, I know exactly where I got V. It was in a tiny record shop in Wellington about 35 years ago, but that's another story. I want to say a big thank you to my producer, Louis, to Graham, who is, as well as being Deputy Director of the CFZ, is also my carer.
And a fine chap.
A very fine chap. You really shouldn't have bought him an expensive bottle of whiskey for Christmas, V, because he was completely rat-arsed over much of what is euphemistically known as the festive season.
Bless him.
Once upon a time, I was far more tolerant of such things, but since I stopped drinking, and so I haven't been rat-arsed in, nearly 2 years, I have no sympathy with those who still do. It's a bit like when I see people, well, occasionally when I'm out in town, somebody walks past me smoking and I get that delicious smell of Mr. Benson and Mr. Hedges' finest, and it makes me so jealous.
Yeah, I don't like people smoking in public since they gave up, because it brings it all back, doesn't it?
The weird thing is, my father gave up smoking in 1961 after he had a health scare, and when he died in 2006, a few weeks before he died, he said to me, he sat up in bed, in his deathbed, and said, "Jonathan, you know what, dear boy, I really, really would love a cigarette." And I said, "Well, Dad, I've got a packet of B&H in my pocket. You're welcome, you can have one. It really doesn't matter." And he said, "No, I would not like to get addicted again." Which, considering the dear old boy only had another couple of weeks to live, I thought was rather sweet. But anyway, I'm digressing again. Thank you very much to Guinevere, who is doing all sorts of magically wonderful things for the CFZ in her capacity as Assistant Director.
She is marvellous.
Absolutely lovely girl. And so, I'm going to be back on Wednesday. What am I talking about on Wednesday? Well, if I can persuade my friend McCrinnan here, my special guest on Wednesday is going to be him. But...
Oh, nice. Okay.
And after that, we'll be back on next Saturday with the second part of my conversation with Ray Harwood. And we'll be back later in the year with parts 3 and parts 4, because there's a hell of a lot more that you don't know yet. So, until then, are you going to be watching, Mr. McCrinnan?
I do sincerely hope so, Mr. Downs.
Well, assuming you're going to be watching, Mr. McCrinnan,
yes, Mr. Downs.
I'm going to be there doing the live chat and stuff. And if you're watching, then I'll be
seeing you.
Perfect.
Bingo.